So on today's episode of Hard Corner, we're going to be discussing the human effects of an active aggressor event, specifically Old National Bank. We didn't respond, but we've been at events like this before. But what I want to start with, Eric, with you, if you indulge me, is let's start talking about the warning signs. Like, what should someone be looking for prior to an active aggressor event? Because all of them that we've studied and we've trained about, their warning signs are definitely evident prior to the event happening.
Yeah. So there's no like magic list here. You know, if you find yourself on this list, that doesn't mean you're going to be an active shooter. This is just a general guide to understand things that could be warning signs.
Correct.
So in today's modern age, one of the things that we notice quite often is they tell you before they do it. So they're going to either tell a family, a friend, they're going to write a letter. They're going to send you a text. There's going to be some kind of social media post. There's going to be an announcement before it happens, prior to the incident. Second, there's going to be some withdrawal. Typically what they're interested in or what they're passionate about, they may not show that interest or that passion, or they may withdraw from contact with others. Third thing that kind of falls on the list at times is some kind of obsession with getting people back. Like they have this vengeance that they felt like they've been wronged on whatever level. And because they were wronged, they're going to retaliate. Another thing on the list that comes to mind would be some type of violence or aggressive behavior. Maybe they're a little bit, they have the hair trigger, short, temperament.
Like you.
From times to times, yes. So these are things that kind of fall on the list, but there's a couple other things. If I'm forgetting, let me know. But what we're typically seeing is it's almost a perfect storm. You'll have an incident happen in your life that's traumatic, whether it's a breakup, a divorce, you get fired. There is some kind of court proceeding. You're being litigated against. There's
I think substance abuse plays a part in it as well. Sometimes
substance abuse. So all these things kind of fall into play. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is something that's always been taboo in the past, but we have to recognize it, is mental illness. Now, with that said, just because you have mental illness doesn't mean you become an active shooter.
Absolutely.
By no means, right? But I put this forward. If you can go into a room full of people or a school full of children and you can decide to begin shooting them, you have mental illness. Yeah. There's something wrong.
I would agree wholeheartedly. And, we talk a lot about this in our training classes, and this podcast is going to kind of be adjacent to that. But at the same time, we're going to talk about hard truths to the best of our knowledge. We're not mental health experts. We can just go off based upon what we've seen in our past, right? Yeah. And how we understand these events and how we break them down and look at them and the stuff that we've responded to, ourselves. And eventually we'll do some podcasts where we talk about our responses, the effects on us, because honestly, I would say that, when you're a police officer for over 20 years, you're going to have some type of PTSD. So I think mental illness to us is not anything that we stigmatize. We know it's important to seek help, but we're just recognizing the fact that literally you can't kill kids without something being wrong. You know what I mean? So,
and again, it's not a judgment. It's just an observation.
Yeah. And
we're not saying that all these things, like if you find yourself on the list, again, you're not an active shooter.
Correct.
But it's just a perfect storm.
Yeah.
All this stuff comes together at the wrong time, at the wrong place. And next thing you know, there's some kind of violence that takes place from one person upon others.
Well, and then I don't want to get into a bigger conversation about this, but we both have a friend that had taken his own life. And I remember when it was explained to me, and by no means, please don't take this as me condoning any kind of active aggressor event. And when I say active aggressor, I mean, because it could be a knife attack, it could be a vehicle attack, but generally it's firearms. But the psychologist explained it to me. He said that at that moment, taking his life was better than the problem he was dealing with. So if you look at it that lens, it's kind of the same thing, except that person decides to kill innocent people, but they know what the outcome's normally going to be. It's what's going to be. It's going to be either suicide or the police are going to intervene. So it's almost kind of the same mindset. So having said all that in our experiences, let's kind of go into the Old National Bank specifically and some of the warning signs that we saw or that they saw. We talked before. We've debriefed two people that were actually shot and wounded in that event. Thankfully, they lived. And when I interviewed them or debriefed them, we had lunch. It was very, not like a professional setting. It was more just us talking. I said, these are the warning signs we generally notice. And I said, in retrospect, do you think that you saw any of these in him? And gentleman, I'm not going to mention his name. He was actually shot. He's done a workshop with us before. Mm-hmm. I think I've said in a previous video, we actually vetted him, make sure the information we're trying to train people is correct. He said in retrospect, there were definitely warning signs, but they didn't understand what to look for because they weren't trained. So that's where we're going to fall back to when we talk about our training on this podcast. Is it's so important to train your folks, guys.
And also let's recognize the fact that these warning signs are subtle.
Right.
They're not big, gross like maneuvers that happen or behaviors. They're small. They happen over time. It's not all at once, but you start adding them up, and typically when you look back,
yes,
you recognize them. But when you're in the middle of it, it may not set off the red flag. But when you start knowing what to look for and you start putting them together in what we call totality of the circumstance, it makes sense.
That's a police term, guys, just so you know. In retrospect, from his perspective, he'd withdrawn from the group. They used to have like weekly.
Well, let's start back. Let's kind of set the scene on this a little bit. So we know Old National Bank is the location. There's a 25-year-old young man who is employed at that location. I'm not sure what his job was, but he had been employed there for some time, and he came at the day of, was it April of 2023?
Yeah, I believe the day after Easter.
Yeah, he came in that day and decided the best option for him was to use a firearm to hurt, injure, and kill people.
Yeah, so he had withdrawn from the group that did things, and there was a rumor out there that he was going to get fired. That's not accurate. The person I talked to, is a higher level ranking person, said in retrospect his work performance had dipped over the past couple of weeks, so there may have been cause for him to think he was going to get fired, but there was no plans to fire him. Like Eric said, he walks in, he's got a duffel bag, goes to his office, pulls out an AR and sets it in his chair, right?
Yeah, well, he brought the gun in and then spends a couple minutes messing with the gun, doing some stuff in his office. I think he comes out to check on some people, and then he walks out of his office or out of that location with a firearm, and the first person he encountered was a female coworker, I believe maybe in the hallway.
Yeah, and I believe that was like he was in his office still, and she's walking towards him. So it was before he actually went to the conference room.
Yes, it was before the conference room. So he encounters the female in the hallway, and he says something to the effect of, "It's time for you to go."
Yeah, you're not supposed to be here today. I guess it was supposed to be her off day or something.
And then she had noticed he had a gun in his hand, and then she turned to run away from him. And about that time, he pulls the gun up and presses the trigger and has what we call a dead trigger, which means he presses the trigger on the gun. No bullets come out because he didn't know exactly what he was doing, and the gun wasn't properly charged. So he charges the gun with a charging handle, puts a round into the chamber, fires the gun, and strikes the lady in the leg as she's running away from him.
And we mention this a lot too in our training. These people that commit these heinous acts, they don't train with firearms, right? They don't.
If they do, it's minimal, and it's just prior to the incident.
All they're doing is going online in some very weird spots on the internet and just talking about doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
So the internet is the greatest thing ever in the world. It's also the worst thing in the world. So when we talk about this in training, we use the word cowards, because who could kill unarmed people for no reason? Like what? So I guess, and we're going to bridge this to further episodes down the road. Don't be afraid of these people. You have to act, and we'll talk about that later on down the road.
Yeah, I mean, active shooters, for the most part, are a couple things. Number one, as we mentioned, they're going to be mentally ill. Number two, like you said, they're going to be cowards. Don't be scared or frightened and thinking they're big, bad, scary monsters that have all this ability to do certain things. These people, for the most part, don't know what they're doing, and they act in ridiculous ways. And most of the time, this society hasn't been trained to deal with them.
Yeah, we advocate for training. And it's also empowerment. So we don't try to scare people. We just try to give you little information that can hopefully help you, save your life. Because when we break down this shooting, so he shoots her, she runs off. He goes into the conference room. They were doing either Zoom or Google Meet with all their big investors or all their bigger clients. And at the same time, I believe in the comments, if I'm wrong, tell me, I believe he was doing a Facebook Live on his own too, recording what he was doing.
He had his cell phone in his pocket recording. And there's a reason for that. We'll get to in the end why he did that.
Yeah.
But when that first shot goes off and he shoots the lady in the leg, obviously the people in the conference room hear that shot. And I believe one of the gentlemen came out of the conference room to check on what was going on. And that's where he encountered the shooter. And that's where he lost his life, right there in the doorway in the conference room.
Yeah, so imagine a conference room, and when we do threat assessments, we see beautiful buildings that are all glass, beautiful conference rooms that are all glass. To understand that gives you no concealment whatsoever.
I think there was only one entry, one exit.
There was two.
Oh, there was two?
There was one main, and then there was one into a kitchenette adjacent to it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if that gained access to the lobby. I'm not sure about that. So,
and like you said, most of the time these people build these conference rooms that look, pretty, but then you realize they offer zero cover or concealment in case of an emergency.
Right. So while they're on this big live call with their, bigger investors or bigger clients, he goes in the conference room and just, not to sound coarse,
he starts shooting people, and I think it lasted about 23 seconds.
Yeah, it was not long at all.
He ended up injuring 8 people and killing 5, and he was shooting through tables and desks or conference tables because people were trying to hide under the tables, not realizing that all that is concealment and that bullets can travel through that.
And then, like in our training also, like bullets go through everything, guys. Like there's very few things that stop bullets, and I can guarantee you glass or wood are not two of them. That's just a fact. So kind of fast forward a little bit on the response, police are starting to arrive.
Well, he comes out of the conference room and he goes and sets up in the lobby. He posts up in the lobby waiting for police response,
ambush,
which is unusual.
Yeah.
It's unusual.
And then I'll just share some, anecdotal information. The gentleman we work with, he kind of told me about it. He said all the men ran out of the room and all the females in the room tried to hide under a table or a chair, like Eric said. And those are the people that lost their lives. So the gentleman we're in contact with was shot in the thigh. And something else that was very unique about this shooting, there was 2 unique things. The shooter shot through glass. So the individual we're talking about just went across the street. So the shooter still had line of sight after that 23 seconds. After leaving the conference room, while waiting on the police to ambush them, he decided to shoot at the same guy again. So
across the street.
Yeah. So when we train people, it's always get out of line of sight of the building.
Yeah, run as far and as fast as you can.
Just because you're across the street, that doesn't make you safe. And this incident proved that. This incident also was the first time, to our knowledge, that's actually happened.
Yeah.
It could have happened before, but these events are rapidly changing. The demographics are getting different. The shooters are getting younger. So it's like back in the day, it used to be a middle-aged white male in his 40s. And,
Yeah, and there's been all ages, all races, all ethnicities, all genders have been an active shooter. Typically, it's 1. Sometimes there's been 2. But like you said, it's changing to the fact of they're becoming a little younger. But generally speaking, it's middle-aged white males. But you cannot ever predict who an active shooter is going to be.
I'm glad you said that. So I have never seen or heard of an active shooter where they interviewed the neighbor, a family member. They're like, oh, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It comes from people you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. People are always, it's a surprise.
So this isn't a apples to apples comparison, but a very notorious serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer, he would carry old people's groceries up for him in his apartment building. They loved him.
Yeah.
They were shocked that he did that. So that's why these warning signs, these indicators, and especially on social media, guys, is so important for you to, if you see something too, that's something else we want to talk about. If you see some troubling social media posts from a loved one or a friend, man, you got to kind of report it now. The police departments have units that actually look into this kind of stuff. So we talk about in training. So this individual was under some kind of stress. He was dealing with some low form of mental illness, according to his parents. What if they'd have reached out 2 weeks earlier and said, man, are you doing okay? We don't know if you can prevent an active shooter, but you'll never know because you'll never get that data.
So, and actually kind of going back, so they looked at the incident after he committed the crime. He was engaged by police in the lobby, and that's where he lost his life. And then the aftermath ensues. And they go back to the investigators who looked at the crime scene, and they went back to the home, and they found that the shooter had a note on his person, had given a message through a text message or some kind of social media, maybe a letter, but also had some messages at home for a roommate. And I believe his mother had heard about what was going on and tried to intervene early the day of and try to call the police and say, hey, she was scared that something was going to take place. Could you please intervene?
I believe he wrote a letter to his roommate, and the roommate relayed that to the mother.
Yeah.
So she was on the phone with the police while this is happening, which is pretty crazy to think about. You know, we talk about indicators, so he definitely had some. We talk about the human cost. So there's something called survivor's guilt, and it's real. So you have people that were there that necessarily did not die but lived, and the rest of their life they feel guilty because why me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a huge human cost to this that people don't realize. So I would assume that most of our viewers would think that, oh, I survived, I'm a winner. There's a lot of guilt that gets carried with this for the rest of your life, period, point blank in the story.
Yeah. It's it impacts you. There's nothing you can do to change it.
I mean, they moved out of that building within a week.
Yeah, they haven't gone back. They found another location to set up shop. I don't think that building is occupied. I mean, I know the residential place above it is, but I don't know if the commercial side's occupied.
Yeah, and that's the other weird thing about this too, not to spin this, but it has effects not just at the location, but we've done a lot of work near that area since then where survivors are running to, I'm not going to mention the name, it's a baseball stadium, but at the same time, like then the human effects go further because even though like those employees didn't experience it, they're still traumatized because they dealt with it and they saw it. So
and
like
that's the part where we talk about in training is what we call spillover, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be the targeted location, but you could be adjacent to or be a neighbor. And like Dale's talking about, those people are fleeing that scene and they're running to you for help. They're running to you to hide. And now you're drawn into an incident that you had nothing to do with. But like you said, that's impactful for you as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of those companies reached out to us about training because while the incident may take place at one single location, it's going to affect the surrounding area when it comes to resources, it comes to spillover crime, people looking for assistance, or the first responders are going to use your location to set up shop and have their command and control.
well, it affected our whole community.
Yeah.
I mean, like
It's a national level event.
miles and miles away, you know, it affected you. And that's the other thing about these things. It's tragic. There's 2 points to this I want to make. And when it just comes back to training, then I'll get off that horse. People don't want it until something bad happens. That's been our experience. So
Resounding experience.
unless something bad happens, people don't want the training to be prepared for what could happen.
Doesn't matter till it matters.
Right. And then we talk about in the police department. Don't confuse poor tactics with good outcomes because you got lucky that day or just because you weren't chosen to be the spot where it was attacked. It's just, we try to build that into like, just be prepared for stuff, guys. It's like, there's no difference in like, do you have a tornado plan? Do you have an earthquake plan? Like, you know, it's.
And you can tie it all together. A lot of people get scared. They're like, oh, that's scary. That's, I don't want to scare my people. I don't want to scare my employees. That's dark topic. And it is. But what's impactful is making it an educational empowerment experience that people can get confidence to know what to do, take that information, and it's applicable everywhere. Whether it's a fire, a flood, a tornado, or whether you're out at the movies or the mall, you know what to do in one of these incidents. If it were to take place, you have your decisions already made. And it's about preparation. It's like anything in life, right? You don't get lucky, you prepare. And that's how it goes.
Yeah, you always want to study before the test because if you don't, guess what?
Yeah.
Life just happens. So talking about that, there's a really specific story that I want to mention. Former SWAT guy that works with us. He was there, first SWAT guy there, did the right thing. All he grabbed was some extra mags.
Magazines that carry bullets.
Yeah. Threw his plate carrier on and grabbed a med bag because he wanted to help people and took his rifle. That was it. So like there's something else too that's important. Like during the situations, there's priorities of life. It's hostages, civilians, police, then suspects. So anything you do to make yourself safer, like if they were to take a shield in there or wait to put his helmet on, that's protecting the officer. He wanted to get in there as fast as he could, which he did. First SWAT guy there was there very early on in the clearing process. He was actually they were pretty sure that the shooter had been subdued. They were actually like 99% sure, but you never know. So he started working on the folks in the conference room.
Provided medical assistance.
Sorry. Tourniquets, chest seals.
Man, I got you, bro. I'll cover you.
Tourniquets, chest seals, wound packing. So he's working on a specific female. I believe she was shot 4 to 5 times. Applied tourniquets, chest seal, did some wound packing on her, and then off she's scuttled to EMS, who then takes her to the hospital. So She goes into surgery. She passes away. Billy, sorry.
He's really bad about that, bro.
Yeah, I am.
He's really bad.
He'll be fine with the story. So he didn't know
No names.
He didn't know what happened to her, right? So a couple weeks later, he gets a phone call or a text and found out she had passed. And he was invited to the funeral, which is very uncommon.
I've never been invited to a funeral
no.
other than doing a protection detail for the funeral.
Yes.
I've never been invited as a participant.
That could be an episode in of itself.
But that'll be one. We'll do one.
So Billy gets there. He meets the husband. He's talking to her or talking to him, and he feels bad about he couldn't save her. And the husband's like, no, you gave us an extra 30 minutes with my wife because your actions prolonged her life enough for long enough for us to get there before surgery. So there's human effects that go beyond just the victims. That affects everybody that's involved in these incidents completely.
So if you had to pick one lesson learned from this incident, what would it be? And it doesn't matter if it's on the police side or the civilian side. What would you think a lesson learned that the listeners would like to know?
That you can have a plan for everything, and we plan for everything. And this is kind of stealing stuff from you, but like there's a famous quote, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, Mike Tyson. Yeah. You have to be nimble. They did some stuff that day, which we talked about earlier, which was uncommon, but it actually saved lives by the way they did it. So,
and here's one of the things I liked about that incident, a lesson learned for me. The bank side of this incident, right? The workers, the tellers that worked in the bank, they had been trained what to do in case of a bank robbery. Never had been trained on an active shooter, but they implemented those procedures that they were taught for a bank robbery.
Which is what?
Which they went into the vault and shut and locked the door. And they stayed in there until the police came and got them. They survived.
So what does that tell you? Does training work or not work?
The training works. And you can use that training that you were taught and apply it to a number of situations. You just got to be able to make a decision and act.
So we're going to wrap this up here pretty soon. But the last thing I want to cover, I think is important, is we talked earlier about like you're not going to know who that possible active shooter is or active aggressor because you can't telegraph it, right? You can look for warning signs.
But you're never going to know for sure.
So the subject in question, well, I believe he was 25 years old, very good student, went to church.
From what I understand, he had a great upbringing.
Yes, great upbringing. Was like Mr.
Everything.
Yeah, Mr. High School he went to. Like he checked all the boxes of a great young man. And if he could do it, anybody can do it. And then the thing that I'll say, and then we'll finish this up, is I remember we got home that afternoon and we went our separate ways, and there was a press conference here, and I was watching it live. And the mother of the shooter thanked law enforcement for their response and for what they had to do because she knew that what her son was doing was evil. Yeah. So that if that tells you like how good he was raised, like I've got kids, you've got kids. It'd be hard for me to thank somebody for ultimately.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
totally.
So that just shows
it's a terrible thing.
It goes to show like that no matter how well you can be raised, mental health is real. We need to check in on our kids. We need to check in on our friends because things like this can happen. And again, we don't know how you can stop it. Like,
I don't think you're ever really going to be able to stop it. But the main thing for us is preparation. Put some time in, put some work in, do some training, educate yourself, empower yourself, your friends, and your family, and be able to make decisions under stress.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
And then, I mean, the last thing I'll say is like, the stuff we pass on to our kids, it becomes ingrained in them now, like how they look at the world. You don't have to be scared. Don't be afraid. Don't change your habits. Like after 9/11, like.
Yeah, don't live paranoid.
Yeah, so these things are going to happen. It's so unfortunate that they happen, but you have to live your life.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Let's wrap it up, man.
All right, folks. Well, that's the last. We're going to talk about this today. Look forward to some new content coming from us. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We respond to all comments. Please,
good or bad.
Good or bad. Sometimes the bad ones are more fun, actually. Yeah. But please comment on this stuff, guys. We want to make sure that you're actually getting value out of this, and if you're engaged, so just let us know.
And if you got something you want us to cover, please let us know.
Yep. See you next time.
Thanks.